Please rise for silent invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a substitute teacher in the clerk's chair tonight. Will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Ford.
Here.
Councilman Tremont.
Here.
Councilman Bastian.
Here.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Here.
And Mayor Burnett.
Here. Before we get into the consent agenda, just wanted to, in case some of you were wondering, watching at home or having just wandered in, why the gold balloons, the gold ribbon. Prior to the meeting today, we had a number of families in who have had the challenge of dealing with childhood cancer, and it's a killer that takes 1 in 4 kids. And September nationally is Childhood Awareness Month, Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So just to let you know, that in the city of Port Orange, we have declared our support for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So if anybody in the room has the, anybody listening in my voice has the opportunity to affect and make change, this is, and feels a cause, this is certainly one worth considering. That being said, public comments on consent agenda items. Hey, Robert.
Good evening. Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive. Mayor, council members. One of the consent items had to do with budgeting, and in particular, it talked about writing off a loan from Loan Pool Fund 508 to the Golf Course Fund 450 in the amount of $1,729,491, which was used to renovate the golf course and the clubhouse. That's just a lot of money to me. And so I don't know how you can just write it off and say they don't have to pay it back. But, and there's also a lot of interest involved, it would seem. So what I'm concerned about is that initially the people who use the golf course were going to be responsible for paying that obligation back, and now you're going to transfer it to another fund so that those people are now relieved of that obligation. And the city doesn't get to see that interest anymore. So I would appreciate if you had somebody that could talk to that, give a little bit clearer explanation of what really is going on.
Mayor, I'm not
Thank
seeing
you
that on
very much.
consent. I don't see that on consent. I've got 2 different agendas floating in my head.
Yeah.
Mike?
Mike Gardner, 618 Ruth Street. I want to address the same issue that the last man did. Only what I'm going to do is, since Councilman Ford has in the past said that if a constituent of his asks that a consent agenda item be pulled so that further discussion can take place on it, he will ask that that item be pulled. I understand as mere citizens we're no longer able to affect such a request. So Councilman Ford, I'm asking that you do so and you pull number 8 on the consent agenda, resolution number 18-28, budget appropriation. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Tom Menakel, 985 Countryside West Boulevard. Pretty much, echoing the same sentiments. If that particular clause regarding the write-off for the golf club at Cypress Head can be separated off and further studied or open for discussion, that would be great.
Anybody else? Agenda approval?
I would like to have number 8 pulled.
We have a motion for, anything else? I'll have a motion for the balance, please.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion second for approval of the balance of the agenda. Call the roll.
Councilman Ford,
Yes.
Councilman Schmott,
Yes.
Councilman Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner,
Yes.
and Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Item 8, Bob? No, we talked about just about all this in the budget workshop.
We talked about this at the budget workshop. The basic argument is that there's many elements to truth in budgeting and to understanding how much money you have and you don't have. And I think after years of experience with the golf course, years of fighting the uphill battle of attempting to meet its debt obligations without success, I think it's time for the city to come to an honest realization that the golf course will not break even and will not be able to pay its back. There are many valuable things contributed by the golf course to the community. And our only hope with the golf course now is to keep the golf course, how would you say, as fiscally close to breaking even as possible. But we cannot expect it to be paying its past debts. To do so, it's foolish and runs in the face of reality. What we can do is try to make the golf course as financially cautious. Looks like we're going to be running in about the $100,000 to $150,000 range. We have many recreational programs that are far higher than that in cost to the community. And the golf course does provide higher value to the property around the golf course itself, which the city reaps in terms of higher taxes from those homes. So the golf course, and if one has debts that are basically going to be uncollectible, you just muddy the waters when you leave uncollectible debts out there looking like we're ever going to get that money. I believe in truth in advertising. I don't believe that we're ever going to get that money. So it's time to ante up and just say, we ain't going to get paid back for that. And with the firm purpose of amendment, we'll try to run the golf course as financially reasonable as possible. And that's what's going on here. Because when we have these things in our books, on our books, it looks like we have far more money than we really do. And, you know, we want to make our books as simple to understand and as honest as possible.
Council, any other comments? May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Public comments.
You already did.
That was just to ask that it be removed. It's now on the floor as city business. I believe we all have a right to speak to it, Mr. Mayor.
I would, Margaret?
Yeah, I think there's some confusion perhaps on the procedure. Everyone is given the opportunity to speak to it. When you first came to the podium,
Where it says public comments on consent agenda items only.
and
That
of
was your
course,
chance.
I think you asked for it to be open, but that was your opportunity to give your input at that point in time. Mayor, it's in accordance with your rules as you're proceeding right now. It appears that the citizen didn't understand that.
Okay.
There's a lot of citizens that didn't understand that.
So it's up to the council as to how you wish to proceed. Your rules
Well, these are our rules, right?
Yes, sir, and
Once an item has been pulled from the consent agenda, it's
Please
no
sit down.
longer on the consent agenda.
Please sit down. I'm not recognizing you, sir. I can't. These are our council rules. where it says comments on consent agenda items only, and I called you up, you had a chance to speak.
And I
Sorry,
did.
Mike.
I asked that it be brought to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
It's now like any other business. What is the difference?
Any other council comments? Call the roll.
Councilman Ford,
Yes.
Councilman Tremont,
Yes.
Councilman Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stelter.
Yes.
And Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Citizen participation agended. Mr. Stephen Miller. Hey, Steve.
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, before you start, I just have a question. Go ahead and pause the clock.
Yeah.
I know that I want you to feel like you can speak freely to us. Would you like Jake to step out while you speak to us?
I really don't care.
Okay.
He can stay here. I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible. I've communicated pretty much everything to the council from the inception of my grievance against Mr. Johansson. And I think you know how it proceeded, the response I got back. The biggest complaint I have is that the investigation was never conducted. Jamie Miller called me in twice. I gave her extensive testimony. There were a number of people involved other than the city manager, other than Lynn Stevens, other than Christina Potts. Basically, I was being accused of by the city manager in his office is being a mole for you guys. He said I'm the sole leak of information to the council about public utility business. Well, I don't know public utility business. The only business I know is water production for the last 35 years. And the only time I've ever been called up here before is to be given some kind of an award, me and my people. It's generally for either winning a state or a regional award, saving the city hundreds of thousands of dollars. He called me to his office because I forwarded you some information about pension stuff that the city was being unresponsive to for quite some time. I told Lynn Stevens about it, what I was going to do. I gave her time to talk to Jamie Miller. 8 days passed. I didn't get any response. I finally got a cold response from Jamie after I forwarded the information to you. But I didn't go over the city manager's head. I went through Lynn Stevens. Lynn Stevens knew exactly what I was doing. So I was summoned down to the city manager's office so he could chew me out about forwarding the information to the council. And, you know, I respectfully disagreed with him because I did go through the chain. Lynn is my, she's my superior. And he shifted the conversation for another thing. According to Jake, he used the principles of deductive reasoning and that he's an expert in the principles of deductive reasoning, and he knows that I know that I'm guilty of being your mole. So one of the questions I'll have for you tonight, don't answer it now. Am I your mole? Am I your spy in public utilities? Because this is what he said I was. Okay, the other thing he said was that me and my senior staff, he was going to fix. He was going to put a report out. He was going to straighten me out. He was going to straighten my senior staff out. I asked him, how are you going to straighten us out? He said, we're a bunch of subversives. He said, we're creating a hostile work environment for a girl that they hired called Christina Potts. Supposedly, we've been harassing her. Supposedly, we created this gender bathroom issue for her that, to me, has been resolved. He also said that there is sexual harassment and racial slurs going on under my nose within my own division. I asked him if he could elucidate on that. He couldn't. So I conducted my own investigation. Me and the people involved that he was going to fix accordingly. We talked with Christina Potts, and I said, Christina, are we creating a hostile work environment for you? If we are, well, you don't have to answer. We can go down and talk to Lynn or the city manager if we're the subject of that hostility. She said, absolutely not. You're not creating a hostile work environment for me. I said, well, why do you think that the city manager is saying this? Well, she said 2 weeks previously I was called down. And I know she was because I was working with her out in the field. I dropped her off. And in Lynn Stevens' office, she spoke with the city manager. She said at that time, he was fishing for a myriad of negative things about us. And me and my senior staff. and encouraging her to file a hostile workforce complaint against us. So I said, what do you think he did that? She says, well, you know, they contacted me back in October because they said you were going to be taking an early retirement as well as my assistant, and they were kind of farming me for the job. And I think they thought you were going to take the early retirement, and they were very upset that you didn't, so they're trying to throw anything they can at you. So this was an interview that I had, me and Steve Woodman with Christina, as well as the sexual harassment stuff. And we'll all take polygraph tests. I'll take a polygraph test. All my people will take polygraph tests. So anyhow, when I filed this complaint with with Jamie, I had Nage that was representing me outside the bargaining unit. After 2 times interviewing me, she agreed to interview all the parties that were interested. Well, she didn't do it in a timely manner. She asked us for an extension, a week's extension, and then 2 weeks extension. She contacted me on the way back to Jacksonville, and I said, are you done with it yet? I said, have you called in the Woodmans? Have you called in, you know, Brent Davis? Have you called in Kyle Coons? She said, I didn't have the time to do that yet. You know, I haven't gotten around to that yet. A week's up, she still hasn't finished the investigation. Then I call her and she says she's going to conclude within 3 days. I said, well, you haven't called anybody yet. She said, there's no need to call your witnesses. I interviewed Jake, I've interviewed Lynn, and I've interviewed Christina Potts. So I read the testimony of Christina Potts, and Christina Potts was completely contrary to the interviews that I had with her. And I had those interviews because I was being accused by this guy here of creating a hostile work environment for her, and so was my senior staff. Also, he threatened me. One of the things he told me was that I was a subversive, and he says my group was a group of subversives, and he says he was going to fix us. And I said, well, why don't you exactly tell me what we've done as far as being subversives? And I said, how are we going to fix us? I said, I'm open to suggestions, because in the last 5 years, all I know is that me and my senior staff, the records indicate we've done an outstanding job for the city. I just received, you know, I said, the other thing is, I said, I've been brought before the council for four or five times for outstanding and meritorious service, for winning state and regional awards. And not me winning them, the same people that he's going to fix, my senior staff. So I said, what do you want me to fix? He says, well, nothing about your technical abilities. Your technical abilities are fine. He says, it's your attitudes. And he's told me that it comes a time when a person's that subversive in my organization, it comes a time that they need to leave the organization. So I asked him, does that mean I'm fired? And he goes, no, I didn't say anything of the kind. So I said, well, it certainly means to imply that. So anyhow, what I did was I decided that under duress, I was going to retire in 2 or 3 months and see if I could maybe train my replacement. I just said, the heck with it. I went ahead, turned my retirement in under duress, left early, filed my grievance, went through the process with Jamie, and what Jamie did the whole way through was skew the whole thing. She did not call my witnesses. She knew that I was telling the truth. She knew they were telling the truth. She intentionally did not call them to be for their testimony. And the thing about it is, I think there's 2 of them in the audience tonight, and either one, any one of us will take a polygraph test. I mean, you can tell I'm telling the truth. So what they did is they orchestrated this. Investigation to only have one side of it. I mean, if you're in a court of law, what do? Do you just get the witnesses from the defense, but not from the prosecution? It's exactly what they did. Then she wrote up this long formal finding of psychobabble. And then when I read the thing and I read Christina Potts' testimony, I said I was appalled by it. It was totally, everything in it was a lie. I'll take a polygraph, my people will take a polygraph. And the funny thing about it is everything that he was accusing me of being, turning my back on sexual harassment, turning my back, and I'm not gonna have enough time to really elucidate on that here. I went ahead and I investigated that. There was nothing to it. And the only way this stuff could have got down to him is through Lynn Stevens. So Lynn was sitting across while she was in there and didn't defend me the whole time. She sat there like a dormouse while he was throwing the book at me. So what I'm saying here today is there is really no due process in the civil service rules when it comes to the city manager. And the thing is, I don't know how you feel about that. I don't know if you're all good with that, if you're complicit with that or not. I mean, you're gonna have to let me know, and you're gonna have to let the public know today, if you're gonna let a guy like this slide with the kind of tyranny that, you know, that he's perpetrated. He slandered me, he slandered my senior staff after 35 years, and he did a very good job with his administrative services director of conducting investigation one-sided. So I mean, if that's good with you, then I said my piece. Another thing too, is I'm on the citizens, trying to think what it's called, non-consent agenda. I may come up and speak again. I have a feeling, I know that there's been a couple of public information requests made about administrative leave. I don't know the exact details, but I'm going to hang around for this council meeting because I really want to hear what those details are, because if they're what I think they are, I think I could throw some light on it. If you remember deja vu, you know, I went through the whole admin time situation. Well, don't be surprised if you get a big revelation coming up. If you do, I said, I do have some, I could speak to that, because I've been told by Cindy DePina, by Lynn Stevens, and by Rick Wilson that admin time is on now. You know, Lynn can approve up to a day at a time for the city manager, and I've been told that we could take up to half a day off just as long as we do it intermittently and it's not abused. I've never done it. I usually go to doctor's appointments on my lunch break because I got caught on it in that kerfuffle before. And each and every one of them I asked, could you put it in writing? We don't have to put it in writing. And that's what I was told before. So I mean, don't be surprised if you'd be conducting another investigation on that. Don't be surprised if you really want to get to the truth, what's going to come out of that. But I get 3 minutes and 58 cents, 7 cents. I'm not going to beleaguer this point. I could go on and I could give you much, much more information. I'm just putting the citizens of Port Orange on notice that we have civil service rules, due process. They don't work when it has to do with that guy over there.
Amen.
That's it. The only thing I ask is this. You can ask if you want. Your silence will tell a lot. If I'm telling the truth, I mean, I'm willing to take a polygraph test, and all my people are. I'm willing to show up here next Wednesday in council meeting with all my people, civil service board convene, and give our testimony. And you'll know we're telling the truth, if you want to hear the truth, okay? If somehow there are little procedures that you want to circumvent doing this, well, here at Citizens of Port Orange, but the thing is, the civil service rules don't work when it applies to him. So, you know, my question to you, if I'm telling the truth and he's done what he's done, he's slandered me and he's done what he's done, do all you council people agree with that, and are you complicit with it or not? And if not, what can you do about it, and are you going to do anything about it? That's it.
Thank you, Steve.
I'd like to say something.
I was waiting on you.
Steve,
You want me to come back up to the podium?
no. Let me just say something. I know you're depressed. I would be too, okay?
I'm sorry, I'm not depressed, I'm outraged.
Okay, outrage, whatever. Nothing worse than spending your whole life doing great work and leaving the organization not feeling good about where you are right at that moment.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay, let me. Okay. See, I want to tell you basically what I really want to say is please leave this meeting with your head held high, because I want to tell you, as someone that's been around the city for a long time, you are appreciated, you are respected. As for being a mole, I don't know of you ever being a mole. What I do know is you got multiple awards, that you're, even through our darkest day in Port Orange, your operation was one that gave us all a great deal of pride. You did some marvelous things. You and I remember the pre-professional days. where you shined like a beacon. And I want to tell you how much I appreciate the quality work. And I think that, know that. Now, know also the area that we're dealing with is pretty complex. Your statement, I am sure, has been heard by the council members. There's very little we can do objectively at this moment, but to dwell upon it and think upon it, and in our individual meetings with the city manager to talk about it, and to take whatever actions we all feel are appropriate, one by one, based on our observations of what went on. Okay? But I do.
I'm going to interrupt you. How is that going to protect my
Mr.
senior
Mayor.
staff that I'm leaving
Okay.
with reprisals?
Procedurally,
We can't talk back and forth.
Yes, sir.
I'll answer his question, and I won't talk back and forth anymore. What I will say is I will certainly ask the city manager to end any animosity towards anyone else in the operation that doesn't warrant it, okay? I will ask for that. I personally will. And that's all I can do because I can't speak for anyone else. But what I can say is hold your head high because you have done a stellar job for this city. And I just hope that those that follow do as well or at least close to what you have accomplished. And I want you to know that.
I think at least twice, you and I, 2 of those 4 times in the last 7, 8 years.
Yep. Yeah, so it's definitely, at the very least, makes me very sad that I do understand that change is hard. I do understand that change in leadership produces all sorts of problems. Been there, done that. But I also understand there are ways to handle it and there are ways not to handle it. And, I will look I will meet with the manager to seek more detail. But hold your head high, because I think most everyone in this room really respects you and what you've done in the past. And we're sad to see this happen.
Unless there are other comments, let me just add one thing. 35 years. Thank you.
I'd also like to thank him for his service. He had a long, distinguished career. I've seen you up here on several times, you and your staff, for awards and all the like. And so, me personally, I appreciate what you've done for Port Orange and all that. I can't really comment further because some of the things you requested and everything via email involve a brother-in-law of mine who's sitting here. So I feel like legally I can't really comment much because my brother-in-law is involved.
Are citizens allowed participation?
Not on this item.
So I can't ask you to ask for the resignation?
No, sir.
No.
Okay. So I won't do that.
Anything else on this? Citizen participation, non-agenda? Deanna, do you have a few for me?
Yes, sir. I have Mike Gardner.
No.
Oh, okay.
I gotta have them.
Oh.
It helps. I do that. It's all right. You're doing fine. Mike Gardner.
That's all I know.
Got it.
Mike Gardner, 618 Ruth Street. My original intent was to talk about public records requests and the difficulty in getting them from the city on certain subjects these days. After what's gone on in the initial minutes of this meeting, I'm afraid that if I tried to keep my cool, I would not come across very well at all. Let me just say that Steve has every right to hold his head high after 35 years being kicked under the bus would absolutely tick me off too. What I've been asking myself since this meeting started is how is it that 7 adult, well-educated, successful, respected members of this community sitting up there on this dais are so afraid of hearing from the average citizen that they tell me, you won't recognize me. You won't recognize me. That's sad. That's very sad. Now, at one time in the past, a contractor next to our neighborhood did some things which were just, they were blatantly illegal. Began clear cutting a lot that there was no permit pulled on, and it caused quite a hullabaloo in our neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods. I remember telling Margaret Malmberger at the time in a phone conversation that I'm retired. I have a little bit of money. With some luck, the money will outlast me to the grave, but I have a lot of time. And I'm going to use 3 minutes of it every time this council meets to come up here and say something. And you can take that away. You really can. If you're that afraid to listen to citizens, you can take that 3 minutes away. You guys can do pretty much anything you want.
Connie, you're up. Just tell us who you are and where you live and what's on your mind.
My name is Connie Van Orden. I live at Colony in the Wood. I've lived there for 28 years. I'm here for 2 reasons. The most important one is we need a light. We have more traffic between Madeline and my park than ever. The place is mobbed. There's been deaths. There's been serious injuries. Some personal friends I know have died right in front of the park. It's a dangerous, dangerous place. And we should have had a light there a long time ago. I can't even imagine why there hasn't been one. So I have to speak my mind. I've been keeping quiet about it for too long, but it has to be brought to everybody's attention. It's a very dangerous, dangerous situation there. If you live there, you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. Terrible, terrible. Well, that's number one. I'm not going to take up too much time. The second complaint I have is yard sale permits. I love to go to yard sales. I love to have yard sales. I always buy a permit. Here's my problem with that. I have no problem buying a permit, and neither does anybody else that I've spoken to. The problem is you folks take the signs down. Now, I don't think that's fair. I can see if those signs are left up there after the yard sale, those are the people who should be fined. As long as they take their signs down, they're not hurting anybody. They're usually everyday people who are just trying to make a little money. It's not a business for them. And I just think something should change there. I talk to so many people and they all say, well, why don't you go to, well, of course, well, here I am. You know, everybody's pushing me to do it, nobody else does. You stand alone when you're, you know, complaining about something. So that's about it. I hope the council gives it some serious thought, both of those subjects. The most important one is the light in front of Colony in the Wood. It's going to get worse because now we have new owners and they are filling up the park with, I can't tell you how many more homes. It's going to be worse than ever. So that's my 2 cents worth. Okay?
By the way, that's a county road, and I will talk with the county about it. So any light will be a county responsibility. It's a county road, so we got to contact the county, and I will.
Whatever it takes.
Okay.
I can't do anything myself, but I know you guys.
No, but you should also
You just
contact
did.
your county representative.
Absolutely.
I have to find out who he is.
She.
Or
It's a she.
Whatever. Put me in the right direction. I can write a letter.
It's that
Billy.
Billy Wheeler.
Billy.
Billy Wheeler.
Billy Wheeler.
Okay. I'll get her name and address.
I think I see her this month as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you can email the entire county council.
I have her number for you. And
The
I'll call
council,
her.
just for your information,
Mike, I can't hear you.
I have her number for you. I can get it to you, and I'll call her as
Thank
well.
you. Great.
council, just for your information, and for those in the audience, when somebody gets a yard sale permit,
Mhm.
our current ordinance, unless you care to choose to change it, covers the yard sale but it does not permit signs at all. So, a lot of people don't understand that. They think when they're getting a permit, they're getting permission to get a sign.
I'd definitely
And-
like to
and our
discuss the pros and cons of altering that. I hear more complaints about that, but I understand both sides of the issue, but I'd like to
When we
have
get
that
to
discussion.
council comments, if you want to bring it up at that point. I don't think that, I think what you need to do at council comments is request that we put that on a future agenda for discussion, but I'll let you do that then. And we have Tom Menicall.
Oh, there's Tom.
Hello again. Tom Menicall, 985 Countryside West Boulevard. Forgive my allergies, I can barely speak.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know I submitted 2 of these, and I just want to address the issue of search. Search on the city website. And prior to the revision of the website, well, the clock isn't moving, by the way. Don't want to go over. Prior to the revision of the website, and you know, it's a nice revision, I had worked with the IT department to improve search, and they did. We were able to connect to Doc 1 or OneDoc or whatever it was called at that time. I can't remember. So search or search and discovery, even though it wasn't great, it was very much improved from the previous version. Under the current version of the website, I tested search the first time I saw the website, and I didn't bother, you know, to contact anyone. But one of the documents that I was searching for actually is related to one of the items on the agenda tonight, and that is the golf course, the agreement between Pioneer Heights and the City of Port Orange for the formation of the golf course. Couldn't find it under the new search. Under the new search, the date searches are almost irrelevant. They don't match up to the documents. The dates are buried within what is called the hyperlink or the URL, and the URL is not searchable. So the whole process, it seems like there's been a bifurcation of data or data sets. Some of it is no longer searchable, and the rest of it, the new data set, seems to be difficult to search. And I find that very frustrating, and I had to resort to a information request, and I actually gave the specific information, and it was returned to me within 15 minutes. But I spent an hour under the current system and could not even locate it under any conceivable phrase, keyword, or anything else. So to me, I think that I don't trust this. I don't like the fact that information that I could use to find readily and have, you know, searched for and found in the past can no longer be found. And information that is currently being submitted, searches that I currently submit, are very difficult to make sense of as well. So the IT budget is over 10% of the city revenues, and I think search is something that needs to be resolved. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Mayor, we'll look into that. As we mentioned last time, that we welcome we welcome input on making our website better. It's not the intent of staff to hide information. If it's getting hard to find, we'll work with
We're
Mr.
spending way
Menicall.
too much on IT for it to get harder. We want it to get easier.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the fact that we can get to it so quick means it's either not accessible to the public yet, but it's accessible to us, or it's too hard to find. So we'll work with Mr. Menicall and figure out how to make it easier. He seems to be he's come to us with IT concerns before, so obviously we can work on that.
Ted Noftel.
off Old Chickadee Drive. 3 points, Mayor, 2 of them resulting from your earlier decision not to hear. Public participation. Florida Sunshine makes clear that every single time an elected body takes a vote, you're meant to hear from the public. Now, with respect, you took a vote on item 4 through 7 on consent. You didn't vote on 8. When you went to vote on 8, you would not take public participation. So, City Attorney, you need to look into that, and you need to brush up on that area of the law. Point number 2, the golf course write-off without public participation, without talking about it, is an outrage, a total outrage. I stood here 3 years ago and I said the projections you were getting from Kemper were garbage. You all sat up there at that time and said, no, 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 they're not. They're good projections. And on that basis, we're going to spend the $1.7 million. And now a couple of years later, the $1.7 million is bogus. It has to be written off. Is the public going to get an apology from any of you up on this dais here tonight for wasting their money? Is Kemper Sports Management going to be chastised in any way for their projections, their phony baloney projections? No, they're not. You know why? Because you're in on it. You are all in on it. You can't win an election in this town without you carry those precincts. And you can't carry those precincts unless you're going to be a sap, a pushover for the golf course. That's the reality of it. Mr. Tremont, you just came through an election. You know exactly of which I speak. And the notion that now we're getting transparency, now we're being honest with the public in our financials, that's the biggest joke of all. If that were the case, what were you being 3 years ago when you supported the $1.7 million renovation of the golf course? What were you then? And finally, I want to follow up on what Steve Miller had to say. What has changed with administrative time from then to now? Council hasn't passed any resolution, any ordinance regarding administration time. But yet now it's understood in this city that administration time, administrative leave can be given. I'd like to know the authority for that. It's not anywhere written. It's verbal. It's just a talking to by the manager to his senior staff. You can go ahead with it. It's not being tracked. Can any of you tell me how much administrative time was paid out last week, last month, so far this year? Nobody can. It's not being tracked. Now, a couple of years ago, people lost their job over that very point, and employees, including Miller, were back charged buku dollars. In Miller's case, $14,000. So which is it? Can Miller walk on water here tonight now because he's retired? Or is Miller the guy from 4 years ago we had to dock $14,000? Which is it? The administrative time has not changed, except now it's right back in high gear again. Now I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give you a little tidbit here. Not that you're going to do anything about it, not that you particularly care. I've left enough breadcrumbs in public records requests that if any of you want to pick up and follow them, you'll find that administrative time is larcenous. And the thing with larceny is it leads to more larceny. And now we have hourly employees having their hours increased by the manager and his staff. Again, not that you care, not that you're going to do anything about it. And in terms of holding this head high, the only people here tonight that should try and hold their head high are you all. And boy, that would be something if you're able to do it.
Can I make a comment legally?
Sure, if I get to respond to it.
No, you don't.
There are two different issues going on here. The investigation of a couple of years ago was about payouts for vacation time. What was happening is people were using their regular time to basically for various purposes, and then given back, and they use vacation time, and then given back the vacation time and getting paid for it. That, by the way, is a no-no. Administrative time is only for one class of employees, and it's only for the salaried. Salaried employees, by law, cannot be held to hourly standards. They have to do what the job demands. So if the job demands 45 hours a week, and there are a lot of side roads in that legally. But on the average, the major principle, if the job goes 45 hours a week, they have to go 45 hours a week without getting paid overtime. Administrative employees do not get overtime. However, we are allowed, and by law, they can be given time off if at the pleasure of the bosses for various going to the doctor, special events, whatever is occurring in their lives. They can be at the discretion of their supervisor, because they're also expected to come in and not get paid overtime. What has occurred recently is we're getting the whole thing blurred, and I'm sure in the coming years we're going to have to make some, I don't know how we're going to do it, because federal law and state law is also involved in this. So it's a really complex issue. But the issue of a few years ago was getting paid for vacation time that was changed, which was forgiven, and they were allowed to put in time they had taken off to get repaid when they sold their vacation back. So there are two different issues there. And I know they're intermingled and they're confused, and hopefully over time. But by law, we cannot charge salary employees under federal guidelines for any hours that they're permitted by their supervisor to use. So it's a conundrum.
Steve, did you want to come up? You signed up for 3 more minutes?
It's a good time for me to come up because I could follow up on what Councilman Ford said, because I lived through it. And it's incorrect what you said, Mr. Ford.
Dan,
it may
can
be.
you start the timer, please? Thank you.
Yeah, it may be what Manager Casella told you at the time, and that was his version of it, but there's been no difference whatsoever. Back then, of course, I was salaried also. I've never asked for any admin time, by the way, ever. I can remember coming in weekends and working probably thousands of hours over a 12-year period. And all I simply did was, you know, if I went to take a half a day off or a day for a doctor's appointment, I would actually turn in paperwork so it could be tracked. And my director, Roger Smith, would say, no, you put in 50 hours this week, or whatever the case may be. I'm going to give you a day's admin time. And he would strike through it and he would give me admin time. He tracked it so it would be done equanimously, so that not one person would get 3 times as much as the other. And that, of course, provided a paper trail and opportunity to scapegoat somebody during a very difficult political time with all of the stuff that was going on in the city. So I believe that Roger Smith was scapegoated, and we're doing nothing different than is being done now. The only difference is now there's no record of it. It's being done covertly. So what I started doing was, you know, if I needed to take a doctor's appointment, I'd take 2 hours. Even if I put 46 hours in, I would put 2 hours sick or vacation time. And finally I saw that other people weren't doing that. So I went down there and talked to Cindy DePina, and she says, oh, no, you can do that. You're a salaried employee. I said, well, I need it in writing because, you know, you guys gigged me for that last time. Well, she wouldn't do that. So I let it go, and I just continued to, you know, go on my lunch break or something. I asked Lynn Stevens about it not too long ago. She says, oh, I can give up to a day at a time. The city manager told me I have the authority to give a day's admin time. I said, oh, okay. So, you know, I still didn't take any. So then I watched people getting it, and I asked my direct supervisor, Rick Wilson, the assistant public utilities director. And he said, oh, you can take up to 4 hours in any given shift. He goes, but you can't abuse it. He said, you know, you can only take it occasionally, like once a month or something. So I did the math. And I said, let's see, 12 times 4 hours, that's about 7 days a year. And I said, I remember when I used to come in on a weekend when we were rebuilding the filters, and I was putting 50, 60 hours a weekend, they would throw me 4 hours here, a day here. So over a 12-year period, I get like 3 or 4 days, you know, a year, you know, for all these extra hours. What you're saying is, you know, we're allowed to do it. And of course, when this whole thing became a scandal, none of us were asked any questions. I was brought in Casella's office, and he said if I didn't sign a paper, I might lose my job. Anyhow, you know, you got my $14,000, thanks. Nothing has changed, it's the same as it was. The only thing is that now that there's probably, if we follow up on this stuff, there's probably hourly employees that are being paid for not being here.
That was my list, Deanna. I didn't have any more.
That's it.
Council comments? Chase, you had a request.
I appreciated the suggestion earlier. I'd like to.
Hold on a sec. Tom, you,
I submitted 2 sheets.
what was the other one on?
This is regarding the Pioneer Heights agreement for resolution,
Well,
whatever it's all about.
You got it?
well, yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I flipped by you. Tom, you can only submit one. You had 3 minutes to talk about 10 items or 2 items. But the other part of it is that we did that under consent agenda also. And we had 3, you would have had to talk about it then.
Well, I don't have to talk about the resolution, but regarding the golf
No.
course.
You want to come back,
Yeah.
come back next meeting? I'll hear from you. And that way you get the full 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Council comments, Chase?
Just a quick one. I was gonna, based on a suggestion, add to it a discussion later on regarding the yard signs. I don't know if the change is gonna be made, but I'd like to hear, why we don't allow, the signs out, as part of the permit process. I know every time people drive by, they love seeing the signs. And of course, people want to be able to advertise, so I get it, on both sides of the issue, but I think it's worth the discussion.
At some point in time, a council made a decision that they hate the signs. If this council decides otherwise, we can adopt and we can be flexible, but I think it's worthy of discussion. What else you got?
I would like to thank the voters, being reelected, and I do want to congratulate our Sarah Jones for a very, very outstanding, professional, clean race, and it was an honor to compete.
That's it for you?
That's it.
Bob?
Tomorrow night, we're going to face issue of the tax increases. And I just want to talk about a city that's very diverse. And I'm tie in to the recent series of articles in the News Journal. This is a poor community, and I see it every day in my particular part of the city. Just a few dollars more, they're right on the edge. And we have to take that into account. And the other problem with the poor is they pay the full brunt. We're all thinking about people who are on Save Our Homes, which cuts how much of your home taxes are. But the poor generally live in apartments. The poor generally live in mobile homes, in our city anyway. And what has occurred is every tax increase really rattles them because there are no exemptions. And if you don't believe it, just check. Every time the mobile home park, for example, gets an increased assessment, an increased tax bill, they're paying on the full infrastructure of that mobile home park, and it's carried over directly to its residents. And that's natural. No business is going to get its taxes increased and not charge its renters. The same is even worse for rentals, where the building and the rental properties are even more expensive. So as we sit up here every year as we go into tax season, we really need to take it easy on property taxes. They are the most regressive taxes of them all. They're very destructive to the poor, and we need to think about that as we're talking about increases. The average increase for people today is under 3%. When we start having increases in the 7, 8, 9, 10, 15% range, we're really doing some damage to the least among us, and we have to be cognizant of that. Go ahead.
Scott?
That was nice.
Easy night for you. Drew?
One thing I had, I hadn't driven on Clyde Morris in a week or so, but it was a week and a half. The right of way, like mowing, the fences, I'm assuming on Clyde, I know it's a county road, but the fences on Clyde Morris are, I'm assuming, up to the property line. And so the rest of it would be right of way, and when they're mowing, I think they're running a mower down the right of way or whatever, and they're not running a weed eater up near the fences. And some of the places had weeds that were 4 feet high.
It's Clyde Morris?
Yeah. Yeah, right up along, like, from.
County section or?
No,
County?
yeah, between City Center and Dunlop.
Dunlop.
Yeah, that was where I noticed it was the worst, because, you know, there's several fences, and it just, I don't know, it just
And they
didn't
don't
look
own
good.
them often
But
enough
it
to
looked like
begin
the
with.
grass had been mowed, but the weeds hadn't been taken care of. So I don't know if they're, you know, if they can do that, or if we can address that somehow.
Jake, you got that?
I do.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I got.
Okay.
So we, I'm almost sure that's county, right? So we'll reach out to them.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And if not, I'll give you a call. If we got an extra
Okay.
weed whacker, we can loan you. We'll figure it
I'll
out.
do it.
We'll
Okay.
figure it out.
All right.
When you're communicating with them, Jake, do me a favor, find out how often their standard of service, how many mows a year they do that stretch. I'm curious what they consider good versus what.
About 12 times less than you want, but yeah, I'll get
Okay.
their-
I'm curious what that number
I'll get
is.
their schedule. Yep.
Anything else? Okay. I got nothing. Which brings us to report from Kemper Sports and Cypress Head Golf Course. Rich.
Bob, I mean.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Mr. Manager, Bob Duquette, General Manager for Cypress Head Golf Course. So this is the report financial operations summary for July, ending for the month of July of 2018. Overall, our golf revenues in the month of July finishes slightly lower, mostly as a result of the continuing wet weather pattern, which seems to follow us along as we go into the August and September. The rain did contribute to a loss of rounds along with 9 days of cart pass restrictions. We were able, and payroll for the month was lower than projected budget for a savings of $7,149, and most of this is just controlling our labor costs during the days when the rounds were really reduced. Our operating expenses finished lower than our budget amounts for a savings of $13,975. The month of July is our 10th month in the fiscal year, and our range revenue is equal to budget. Pro shop revenues are higher, and due to savings in payrolls and operating expenses, we are definitely ahead of the projected budget for the year. Our entire team is continuing to support Flag Sticks, which is the restaurant at Cypress Head, building a strong relationship with Kevin Hanna, who's the owner, and Reggie Hunter, who's our sales director, has been working with Kevin to promote the facility to all guests, email blasts, promotional advertising, and posts on Facebook and Instagram as well. For our tee sheet, we had 3,319 rounds for the month, 2,627 paid rounds, 482 annual rounds, and 210 other rounds. So the total breakdown was 2,562 18-hole rounds and 649 hole rounds. New merchandise in the pro shop happens and arrives regularly. We had 7,077 in pro shop sales with 330 in gift cards. During the month of July, we had summer camps for juniors, and our teaching approach is essentially based on establishing fundamentals that will keep our students interested and excited about the game of golf for our future. We cover all aspects of the game and includes also days on the golf course to practice their skills. We are also offering lesson packages, beginners, advanced players, and we also participate in a player development program, which is an initiative promoted nationwide by Kemper Sports to help introduce new players to all the game of golf. I'm proud to announce also that the Cypress Head Golf Course received the Reader's Choice Award for the best golf course in Volusia County, and this is the 9th year in a row. We also hosted the Volusia Flagler Junior Golf Association at Cypress Head, and this is an opportunity for all the local junior golfers and their parents to experience Cypress Head. On our Mindshare reviews comments, we send out about 400 questionnaires on a monthly basis. Overall rating for the course received a 7.6. Recommended rating of 8.7, and our service rating is at 9.1. Camper Sports has been a corporate support. We have ongoing resources, participating monthly webinars designed to share best practices used by other camper properties throughout the country. We continue our series of men's and ladies golf clinics, promote Cypress Head. We are continuing with our junior play free program, which is ended in August, but we also have reduced rates now for juniors to play, along with their parents. And our staff continues to work together, providing our best in-class service for all of our customers. A report for July.
Comments, questions? Drew?
Thank you.
How's it looking this week? Is it kind of wet and sloppy out there?
It's still a little wet and sloppy. We've had an opportunity to get pretty much everything cut down, so it's looking a whole lot better. We're going to try to get off cart pass hopefully tomorrow.
Okay.
You've been saying that for how many months?
Yeah, it's been a very tough summer.
Yes, it has. Bob? Drew? Bob? Chase? I'm sorry.
I'm good. Thanks.
The other one. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Brings us to item 15. Second reading of ordinance 2018-21. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code chapters 3, 5, 6, 13, 16, and 17 relating to code administration, subdivision and site plan regulations, landscaping and buffers, home occupations, residential outdoor storage, and PCA individual zoning district disclosure, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Motion to approve?
Second. A motion and a second. Council comments?
None.
There being none, anybody else like to speak to this? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Ford?
Yes.
Councilman Tremont?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Item 16 is second reading of ordinance number 2018-23, the rezoning of 6225 South Williamson Boulevard. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, rezoning plus or minus 5.85 acres located at 6225 South Williamson Boulevard from planned community development to community commercial, authorizing revision of the official zoning atlas and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2018-23.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Council, comments?
No, that's second reading.
There being none, anybody else like to speak to this? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Ford?
Yes.
Councilman Tremont?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Which brings us to the first reading of ordinance number 2018-24, the annexation of 1727 and 1737 Fern Park Drive. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, annexing approximately plus or minus 15.3 acres of property located at 1727 and 1737 Fern Park Drive, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance 2018-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Welcome.
Good evening, Penelope Cruz, planner. So as you said before you, this is an annexation of a little over 15 acres. The annexation has been reviewed by the various departments in the City of Port Orange, and it's been analyzed and shows that there's capacity to support the annexation. The applicant's intent is, if the annexation is approved by the council, that they will then move forward with submitting applications to change the future land use designation and zoning to city designations with the intent of developing an 84-unit townhouse development. The applicant is here and is able to answer any questions you might have, and also here to answer any more questions you might have about this or the future development.
Why don't we start with any council comments, questions for her? Drew, you want to start?
Let's start on the other side. I'm
Okay.
still.
Chase, you want to start?
What's the future outlook for this?
So they're proposing to change from the Volusia County designations to City of Port Orange medium density to support 84-unit townhome. The intent is, right now the property is accessed off a unpaved road. It's actually going to access easement to the property. The applicant is wanting to, as part of the discussion, early on discussions, they have not submitted any plans yet, but the intent is for them to provide a 50-foot paved road from their property, and working in partnership with the property owner to the north. So that's the intent. Like I said, the site plan, the future land use and zoning hasn't been submitted this time. The plan, their proposal is to come in as a PUD. So the council would see the future land use amendment, which would be a large-scale amendment since it's over 10 acres. You would also see the PUD amendment and concept plan before any kind of site plan would be submitted.
And what's allowed to go there right now?
Right now, it's just a low density. It's under Volusia County, and we actually wouldn't have any jurisdiction until they change to city land uses.
I know,
so it's residential.
But all right, because that's going to be a question, you know, and the people at Crane Lakes aren't going to want. I shouldn't assume, but if history is any guide, anytime you add more development, has any amount of density over in that area, particularly, it's, I get cautious about it. So I'm wondering what is allowed to go there now in terms of what could possibly be different.
Current
I know
county
we're
zoning is.
Yeah, so the current density allows 4 units per acre, and they're proposing to go to 8 units per acre, so kind of doubling the allowable density.
So they could do 42 townhomes as opposed to 84. I think that's what Chase is getting at.
Okay. Right, this is just the rezoning.
No, this is just the annexation.
Just the annexation.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I meant this is just the annexation. The rezoning request would come separately.
Yeah, if the annexation were to be approved, then the applicant would move forward to apply to change future land use and then zoning.
Well, and I appreciate the transparency, so I can know this going in. Thank you.
Thanks, Chase. Bob, go ahead.
I think I know the answer to this, but I got a call. The annexation request has no environmental impact statement attached to it. And as I explained to the person, tell me I'm right, if I'm right, that will be done at the time of the actual putting in the proposal.
Yeah.
As opposed to an annexation.
That's required with the future land use amendment application.
Okay.
Scott?
I got nothing.
Drew? Okay.
The applicant is here as well.
Okay. Let's hear from the applicant. Welcome.
Hi, Colleen Miles, Land Development Resource Group on behalf of the property owners. One clarification is we're not requesting double the density. It will probably be closer to 6 units. So it is increased density. It is a townhome development, so therefore the threshold of trip generation, which is predominantly the concern, is going to be much less than a single family home. So we are limiting that. We are also proposing to do an improved roadway to city standards that will allow for fire protection, et cetera, to the preserve that you currently don't have. This is just the annexation, however.
Sure. Right.
Okay. Chase, you got anything else to ask?
No, but I appreciate you speaking on that.
Bob?
No.
Scott?
No, I'm good with the annexation.
Okay. I was going to ask Penny this. Do any other properties, are any other properties other than this accessed by that road?
Yes, I'll get that map back up. Currently, all of these, there's a parcel here. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. There's a parcel right here, as well as all of these properties, these back here, are accessed by this, it's a 50-foot wide dirt road. It's an access easement that they all have rights to. What's being proposed, if this moves forward, would be right below that, adjacent to it, an actual city standard 50-foot public road that would extend to here with this development if this moves forward. And then at some point in the future, if this ever gets annexed and developed, then it would be able to be extended at that point.
Okay.
With utilities and everything.
Public road. Does that
Public
mean
road.
Paved?
Paved.
Okay.
Yeah, fully to our standards.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for her?
The road.
Anyone else here would like to speak to this? Come on up, Robert.
Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North. Mayor, council members. What confuses me on this is the fact that the owner of the property doesn't go to the county first, get their zoning change, and then when they get the units in, then request the becoming part of the city. Because by granting the rezoning, not the rezoning, but whatever, it doesn't entail any promise that they will be granted the change in zoning. And so that's sort of a big gamble they're taking when they could go to the county first. And so I become concerned that maybe something's going on that they don't want to ask the county because they don't believe the county would grant them the rezoning. Thank you.
Thanks. And I think that's interesting, but quite frankly, if it's gonna come into our city, we should be able to zone it. I don't want them zoning it if we're gonna be rezoning. I want us to maintain control if it's gonna be annexed into our city.
Yeah, and we're only talking about an annexation tonight. There's been no
Yeah.
request or
And that's,
formal
it's an
statement for
interesting point to
anything,
ponder,
so,
though.
yeah.
Anybody else? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Ford?
Yes.
Councilman Tremont?
Yes.
Tremont? Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stelter?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Thank you. Which brings us to item 18, which is ordinance number 2018-25 on first reading, moratorium on personal wireless communications governed by Chapter 16, Section 9 of the Land Development Code. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, establishing a moratorium on the submittal of applications for site plans, subdivisions, conditional uses, special exception uses, and change of use, and also the issuance of development orders, building permits, zoning verification letters, special exceptions, conditional use, and change of use zoning approvals for communication towers, alternative support structures, antennas, and other communications facilities used in support of thereof governed by Chapter 16, Section 9 of the Land Development Code, providing for the duration of the moratorium, providing for interpretation, providing definitions, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. An English teacher would have a fun time with that run-on sentence.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2018-25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Items on the floor. Mr. Berman.
Tim Berman, Community Development. The request is basically for, like we said, the 3-month moratorium for us to reevaluate our code requirements regarding personal wireless communications on private property. We're currently underway of looking at the code right now, and we intend to bring that code amendment back before you for review here within the next few months then. So we're just requesting that moratorium to put time out so we can update the code.
Okay.
You have 3 months to get, can you do it in 3 months or do you need 6?
We believe we can get it done in 3 months, and basically we're currently working on it now, and we intend to get that moving as quick as possible.
If you need more time, then just let us know.
We know.
Any other comments, questions? Anybody here like to speak to this? Any other, nothing else from us? Comments, questions? There being none, call the roll.
Good action.
Councilman Ford?
Yes.
Councilman Tremont?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stelter?
Yes.
And Mayor Burnett?
Emphatically, yes, 5-0. With that, let's take an 8-minute break, an 8-minute recess.
You can wait 8 more minutes, right?
Oh, no.
And we're back, which brings us to resolution number 18-17, the partial drainage easement vacation. Resolution number 18-17 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, vacating a portion of the rear yard drainage easement located at 618 Ipswich Lane on Lot 86 of the Foxborough subdivision, Phase 2, and providing for an effective date. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve resolution number 18-17.
Motion to approve or motion to deny?
Is a motion to approve. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. It's on the floor. You're on.
All right. Good evening. Margaret
Wait,
Tomlinson.
wait a second. It's been a little while since.
It has been a while since.
Yeah,
I've been
I
here.
almost forgot.
I mean,
what
we
you
got a new
look like.
employee.
Tell us
here.
who you are.
Margaret Tomlinson, construction and engineering manager. This easement vacation is best represented by this graphic that's in your packet. It shows what the proposal is by the applicants, and which is not supported by staff, and then the option that we've come up with that is supported by staff. The applicants would like to vacate 7.5 feet of the 15-foot drainage easement on the rear of their lot. We've done some analysis, looked through the historical records. The drainage easement was created to protect a swale that runs behind the properties on Ipswich Lane and Turo Drive. And after our analysis and looking through this, we've come to the realization that we can support a partial vacation, but we need a minimum of 10 feet for Public Works to maintain this easement. That would be 10 feet on either side, and for a total of 20 feet.
Either side of the fence?
Yes, the fence is approximately on the property line. It's a little set
Okay.
into their property. So the graphic's a little off, but basically the fence is the property line, and the easement is 15 feet on their property and 15 feet on the opposite property that fronts on Toro.
So there's 30 total to work with now, and
That's-
you need at least 10 to be maintained.
That's correct. And
Combined.
our standard easements these days are 20 feet wide.
Okay.
When this was developed, they put a 30-foot easement in there, and they talked about back in the day that they were saving trees and maintaining a 6-inch deep swale through the area. Yes, sir.
I see the fence there and the options and everything. Have we ever had to like utilize gain access to the property to do any maintenance or easement work on their property?
Not to my knowledge, I don't believe we have, but
Okay.
we do have,
The
since-
swell's
since-
behind it, right?
The swale's behind it.
Okay.
And the fences that have been constructed with those permits, they were permitted with our policy, our current policy, where we put a note on the permit that they
Mhm.
would have to remove the fence if we needed to get in there and do any kind of maintenance.
Okay.
So this option that we support basically gives them the same footprint for the pool. The pool encroaches into the easement by about 3 feet. Instead of building a concrete deck, that would be pavers, but because pavers are considered non-permanent and they're allowed in our easements, and the spa would need to be shifted back approximately 2.5 feet, so that it maintains that 10-foot minimum.
What, are there?
No, I was going to say questions for Margaret.
So do we have any utilities that are underground in this area now?
No, the only thing that the easement is operating as is a drainage facility.
Swale. So just kind of projecting what we could ever possibly need to go in there and do would be to regrade the swale, would be it? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
But the swell's on the outside. How far from the property line is the swell?
The swale, I mean, the property does, the topography goes down, so there's a portion of the swale is in the backyard, but then it also goes to the other side.
Okay.
So.
To the other side of the fence, and then is there
And then
actual,
there's
is there a
more,
swell that
another-
actually holds water? Because I'm assuming the property isn't holding water.
Well, during the analysis, what we discovered was that this acts more like a dry detention pond. It doesn't
Okay.
so much convey the water from one point to the other.
Okay.
The water does sit there and percolates, but apparently it's doing so very well because there's never been any drainage complaints up here.
Okay.
And I do know the property owners are here if you have any questions for them.
Oh, we'll love to hear from them, but any other questions from Margaret while she's up here?
No.
Mayor, do you want to hear from Lynn as well? She's
Oh,
standing by.
absolutely.
And the property owner.
We got Lynn Stevens on hot standby.
Lynn Stevens, Director of Public Works and Utilities. We have looked at this. Margaret's correct. We've met numerous times with community development to see what we can do for this resident and how we can still maintain drainage in this area. And yes, to answer your question, we have not gone in and done any work in this particular easement. It has about a 6-inch depth, so it does operate as a dry pond, not like a ditch. So it's not designed to hold water, it's designed to allow water to percolate into the ground. The reason why the previous council made it a 30-foot wide easement was to protect all the trees in the area. There are a lot of trees in the back. To answer your question, if we do need to get in there and maintain it, as Margaret stated, we would ask them to move the fences or we would relocate the fences for the residents through that area. We would notify them well in advance of going in there.
Oh, sure.
There hasn't been an issue with flooding, but again, it's acting as a dry retention pond. If you look down the end of the street, you'll see that there is a pipe, a drainage pipe that takes the water across the street to the lake.
Okay.
And so we talk a lot about impervious space. It doesn't look like a lot, but would concrete versus paver versus allowing the whole thing to happen increase the impervious area to the point where it might cause flooding? I'm asking, I don't know.
Again, anytime you take away that impervious area, you have a better potential of flooding in the area, and we don't want to create an issue there. As Margaret stated, most of our easements are 20 feet wide, and that gives us plenty of room to get in there with equipment, but most of our easements don't have that many trees in there, and they're generally a little steeper in slope. So this is only a 6-inch, and over that 30-foot area, 6 inches is not really noticeable.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions?
There's no foreseeable near future need to get in there and do anything that you're aware of right now?
Not that we're aware of at this particular juncture, no.
I mean,
sir.
I know this area's been developed for a really, really long time, and it's pretty much been the way it is since day one. I think.
Right.
Okay. I'm good.
When we hear from the Vincinis. Come on up. Tell us who you are, where you live, what you're asking for, and why. That's all.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Larry Vancini, 618 Ipswich Lane. I just want to clarify and get some information regarding the unfavorable city report before you make a decision. What we're asking is to vacate 260 square feet, which is approximately 1/5 of the total easement of 1,340 square feet in our backyard. We've actually been in our home for 30+ years. We were the third homeowner to reside in our development. Our property and those around the easement is not in a flood zone. In all these years, no city access and maintenance, like they said, has been done to this. And the staff told us there's no plans for drainage and work drainage in the future. And the only one meeting that we went to, we brought to their attention an email, which I have a copy of, from the St. John's Water Management, pertaining to the easement permit that was issued during the development phase 2 of the subdivision in 84 and 85. This email gives insight into the permit and the current standing on vacating of the easement for our pool. Unfortunately, this is left out of the unfavorable city report, and we don't know why. We feel this email is significant, and it seems odd that it was not included. The email states, this is an old permit, and district does not accept restriction language, which is that requirement for at least 25 years. The district has no objection to the construction of the pool as shown in your plan. We would recommend that the pool contractor be instructed to remove the fill resulting in the excavating of the pool and placing it so it does not fill the remainder of the drainage easement. In researching past council meetings, I've read documents even back from 2016 to 2007, where the council has approved vacating half of the standard 10-foot drainage easements on the person's lot. In working with community development staff, we believe that asking for the 15 foot, out of the 15 foot, asking the 7.5 is a reasonable, and it would still maintain plenty of room if ever the city needed access to this area. And it would be larger than most requested easements that's been approved by the city. During this process, we've continued to work with our pool and contractor in the city, which include multiple and changing requests to get this done. Adjacent is our neighbor, Robin Ford, who's here with us tonight. She's also shared that there has been no drainage concerns, even with permit fences that was allowed by the city. Her property contains the inlet of the drainage from the lot in the easement up to the retention pond in the area. In closing, this is about residential community improvement of our property. Along with the addition of the pool, we are investing in a costly home improvement, storm windows, and a pool covering, which requires concrete. We understand and agree with the city's concerns about water drainage and the protection of homeowners' property. We would never consider constructing a pool on our property if we truly believe this would cause impact to our city.
You're the applicant.
And we thank you.
You can keep going if you're the
Nope,
applicant.
that's it.
Okay.
And finally, we feel it's reasonable, and we thank you for your time.
Well, don't run away, because I've got questions for you.
I'm ready.
I'm sure we all do. But first and foremost, Larry, I do have to defend staff in regards to the fact that they are handcuffed by the rules in which, and it makes it very difficult when they start looking at those things. So unfortunately, it goes through staff, and it ended up here in front of us.
Exactly.
Now, we have the latitude to do what they just couldn't. So
Right.
I am appreciative of the hard work that they all put into this. But I'm hoping that we can come to something reasonable. Myself, I'm like looking at 30 inches of depth here. But there again, be up to ups. And furthermore, I have to say this. You're investing in your home because you want to stay here in Port Orange.
Exactly.
And I think that's a positive. Questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
comments?
Because you are making an effort to improve your home and property, and you're going through the channels. And I also appreciate the work that staff did, because they're following the rules that are in place and set. And so I appreciate all the hard work. And looking at everything that I've looked at here, I really don't see a problem with the pool going in. You're trying to have more enjoyment of your backyard and your property.
Appreciate that.
I have a pool. I love it. I've never regretted it one day, even when I've been cleaning it after a hurricane. I've never regretted it once, not once.
Seems like if you're going to regret it, that would be the time.
Yeah. Never have regretted it.
Scott?
I'm going to go on record and say I didn't regret mine, but I regret it now because nobody uses it. And I think it was a great idea 14 and a half years ago when the kids were young at home. Yeah.
We waited till the kids were older.
Resale.
But it's also just it's aesthetically nice having that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I agree with what the mayor and what Councilman Bashan said. Staff's job is to follow the ordinance and the codes that are laid out before them. Some of those things are 30 years old, and over time you look at something, you go, yeah, there's some room for an adjustment here. I don't have any problem supporting you guys building your pool and vacating this amount that you need to be able to put your concrete around there. The only caution I would give you, and I truly appreciate the time and effort that you guys have put in communicating with your neighbors. That's what I wanted to tell you I appreciate most, is I know you guys have done that. And more often than not, that's the type of thing we really like to see, is talk to your neighbors. How does this impact them? Let's look at this thing a little bit bigger than just your backyard. And so I appreciate the information that you've provided, that staff's provided, and all of this I think makes it a lot easier for us. The comment from St. John's Water about digging out the pool and what do they do with the fill dirt, I've seen that so many times.
Yeah.
Believe in that. Reiterate to the developer, it's got to leave the property.
Oh, yeah.
Spread it out, because they like to spread it. It costs them money to haul it away. They like to spread it out, and the next thing you know, they've changed the grade. That no bueno. That's bad. Can't do it. So, just kind of,
You do not want water flowing away from your house and toward your
yeah,
neighbors.
just
That
reiterate that, because I've seen
would
that
be very
happen.
unneighborly.
And that's what happens is, they spread it out, so now now you change the grade really,
Exactly.
and what happens on everybody else's property. Your area, not so much, it percolates well, it's usually pretty dry even after we have a big rain, so, I've got no issues, I'm good with it.
I actually have one more quick question. Larry, can
Go
you
ahead.
explain, I heard you say something about a pool cover and you can't do,
With
can you
pavers.
just explain, like, if
The
you're
reason-
granted the whole easement,
Right.
why can't you put pavers in that one area?
Because if you ever put a pool covering with aluminum, they want to tie it into concrete instead of pavers, because they wouldn't support it.
Understood. Thank you.
Gotcha. Bob?
My only two concerns, and this may not be for your area, but my area, we have been rough on easements, drainage easements, and we have paid a terrible price. We made some very bad decisions. I'm dealing with 2 or 3 of them right now that call me every day because the water from their neighbor's pool is flowing downhill into their backyard and in their back door. So I'm always a little jumpy about it. In your case, it does not appear to be that evident. The other problem I have is I hate sending a message to our staff. They are professionals. I've found them very easy to work with citizens, and if they think this is an issue, then I may have to think this is an issue. So I'm just concerned. We have such flooding problems in this city. We've got to be eternally vigilant. So I don't know what to do on this.
Chase?
I appreciate everybody's comments. I think they're right on. I appreciate Bob's as well. This is a major concern throughout the entire city, but I appreciate the investment into the property. I've seen. I'm not an engineer, but I mean I can look at a place and say, it looks fine. So you'll have my support.
I think it's interesting to note, and I'm looking at the topography of the trees in the area too, because that's my only concern really is that we, none of the trees have to be removed.
No, there's no trees in the easement area that we're asking to vacate.
Okay.
I have a wider picture if you'd like to take a look.
I'm looking at Google Earth.
Okay.
If you got a bigger picture, I'll look at it, but.
There's one in the exhibit that clearly shows you where the trees are as well.
I've seen that one too.
Oh, so, okay. I've seen that.
Oh,
That's
yep,
good.
I see it now.
This here, nice things about having a drone.
Use baseball chalk for that? Did you use baseball chalk for that?
No, just the traffic spray.
Oh, okay.
Mayor, before
Somebody
you,
had fun with the drone.
Mayor, before you call for the vote, I got one comment I want.
Okay. What we have on the table as a motion is the staff, the staff recommendation. So, seems to me we could probably go in a couple different directions. If we approve that, then so be it. Or we could amend it to include the additional, or we could vote down and then hear another amendment, but it
He
seems.
made the motion to approve the request.
The request is the staff recommended
Oh,
request.
oh.
So what we would need to do is amend the motion to include the additional easement request by the applicant. So.
I'll make that motion in a second, but I think if Margaret wanted to chime in, I can do that after she.
When you're ready.
I'm ready now.
Council members, I just want to invite you to consider one other aspect that we bump into from time to time. I heard the applicant indicate that the neighbors have been consulted, but bear in mind that a drainage easement impacts a whole subdivision. That's the way it's designed, and I know that's the way the staff has analyzed it and giving you their recommendation.
Sure, absolutely.
And I don't know that there's been any broad scale notice to everyone. Bear in mind that what you do for one applicant and the subdivision may need to be repeated. And I know the analysis that the engineer has done, I got a quick update before our meeting, includes every inch of that 6-inch depth to meet the demands of that facility as it's designed. So all 20 feet were very important to staff.
Well, and I think staff's notation tonight that really all they need is about 10 feet to work
On
with.
each side, right.
No,
So
total.
a total of 20.
No, she said
10 on
total
each
of 10.
side.
No.
Perhaps we need a
Margaret,
clarification.
can you clarify?
There's 30.
So the clarification is 10 on each side.
Okay, for a total.
For a total of 20, which is the standard for the city now.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing I'd just like to add is, so many times over the years, and a lot of this even predates the 5 of us up here, even you and me, Bob, as long as we've been here, is that we get requests from developers to work with them on easements, on green space. And usually we get some kind of concession in the process, because I'm not going to just give something away for the sake of them asking. Never. And I've seen that over the years. But we've been willing to work with large-scale developers historically to get a better product. And usually that's their goal, because if they get a better product, they can turn around and sell a better product. What I'm seeing here is somebody who's willing to invest in his home. There's certainly anybody who invests in Port Orange is also going to be willing to pay the price. I know that when my neighbor built their pool, lo and behold, next year my valuation went up. That's a very mixed bag. I'm certainly glad my house is worth more until I write the tax bill on it, but it was marginal, of course. But I appreciate the fact that certainly I think your willingness to invest in your home it's probably got more to do with the fact that you want to enjoy it, but I appreciate that. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Here's somebody that could have left and bought a house elsewhere with a pool. They're happy with their neighbors, they're happy with their neighborhood, and they want to invest in it. And tell me if I'm wrong.
That's a fact. I mean, we have great neighbors. We've been there 30+ years.
Okay.
We're born and raised here.
Excellent. You're the other one. Usually well, you don't get that many people in a room. Usually when I walk into a room and it's there you go. Okay, there's an excuse there. Usually walk into a room, it's like 10 people, 8 of them are from somewhere else, but no matter how long you've been here. I would entertain a motion to amend.
I'll motion to amend my original motion, to approve the request of the applicant to vacate the 7.5 feet of the 15-foot wide easement on their lot to allow for the construction of an in-ground pool with concrete deck.
I'll second. I think I was the second on that, so I'll second it. And you've amended the motion. Anybody else here like to speak to this before we vote?
Mayor, I have
Robert?
I'll wait for Robert.
Hey, Robert.
Hello. Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive. My concern has to do with once you make a concession here on this property, you have to be prepared to make concessions on all the other properties that abut this swale. And the second part is particularly if the standard is 20 feet and you've got 30 feet, everybody's going to feel that they should get the benefit of reducing the 30 feet. And from a point of view of equity, if the standard is 20 feet, then if you're going to offer this person a variance, then I think you have to offer that 20-foot variance, to the entire community. If they all got 30 feet easements when your standard is 20 feet. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is always gonna be hard because.
We're not talking about 20 feet, we're talking about 7.5 feet.
Yeah, so we're not saying 10 feet each side, which is what staff indicated.
Yeah.
He's asking for 7.5. And it is small, but if everybody asks there, we may, I don't know, but we may end up in a situation where we have to get rid of some trees, and they look like pretty decent trees, to change the flooding. I concur with Bob that the staff proposal of moving it a little bit is in the best interest of everybody. It looks like a cul-de-sac there, or you know, 5 homes that are back to back. If everybody asks for give to one, give to all, if they do, we may have an issue in the long run. I don't know that. I just bring it to your attention.
That is an interesting point, but I would say that if you're building a swimming pool, all the neighbors are gonna be coming to your house. They won't need to build one.
But they won't be when the 4 neighbors start flooding, if it would come to that. And obviously, if and when that time comes, the city will do our best to take care of it. But I don't know what I don't know. But that easement's there for a reason. It was fought by council to leave it there for a reason. The argument about development concessions, that's when they're building a big development and they can kind of look at the whole and mitigate the risk. I just throw caution in the fact that others may be coming in the future and we may find ourselves in a bind. But over to you for a decision. As always, staff will execute.
Margaret whispered a good point to me that we may have some confusion by amending the motion because you'd approve one thing and then approve something. So my suggestion is that remove both the amendment and the motion from the floor and start fresh.
So moved.
Second.
You're removing your motion and you're removing your amendment?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so we no
Absolutely.
longer have a motion on the floor. So I would entertain a motion.
Go ahead, Scott.
No, let me go back to these notes.
You did so well the first time, Scott.
Wow.
I'll let you have this one.
Okay. Motion to approve the applicant's request to vacate 7.5 feet of the 15-foot wide easement on their lot to construct an in-ground pool as shown and a concrete deck in their rear yard.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second.
And staff is not confused.
Okay.
They're
You're not
not.
confused, I'm not sure that I'm not, but that's okay. Anybody else like to speak to it? There being none, council, back to us. Other comments? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Ford,
No.
Councilman Tremont,
Yes.
Councilman Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner,
Yes.
and Mayor Burnett.
Well, you already got it, so I will say no just to be mean. 4-1, yes.
I'd like to see the finished product.
Wouldn't we all?
Come on out.
Congratulations, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
You got it.
Have a good night.
Good luck. First reading of ordinance number 2018-27 on shopping carts. I like this one.
Chief.
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 18 to establish a new Article 14 adopting shopping cart regulations related to signage, on-site retention measures, and retrieval plans, providing procedures for shopping carts found on public property, providing for penalties, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. How about a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 2018-27.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Chief, you've got some experience with this.
Good evening, yes,
I've
good
seen you
evening.
use a shopping cart before. Pretty good.
Tom Grimaldi, Police Chief. I do have some experience with this in a different city, and so if you recall, well, first of all, I stand before you tonight because if I'm sure you do recall that in April of this year, the police department took over code enforcement. The code enforcement team came to our PD. It falls under our purview, so that's why I stand before you tonight. Also in April, I think it was the April 17th meeting, according to my notes, council presented to us some pictures and some concerns with shopping carts around the city. And they were very concerning, actually. And this ordinance is truly based in the quality of life issues that we hold near and dear, to keep our community looking good and keep it, reduce the unsightly shopping carts on the sides of the roads, etc. So I met the next day after that council meeting with the city manager and Deputy City Attorney Matt Jones to discuss what we can do about this. Again, having a little bit of experience with this in the past, I brought an old ordinance from another city. Attorney Jones reached out to Kissimmee, Florida, I believe, and some other agencies in the area. And we're able to formulate this ordinance that we present to you tonight. Again, it's really based in the quality of life issues and improving the quality of life issues within our community. So that's what it's based in. What you'll find interesting in this is the people that take the carts off property. There are statutes for that already under Section 506 of the Florida State Statutes. So that's a crime in of itself. So we have that. What's interesting here is we're putting a little bit of responsibility on our business owners as well. We ask them to be good corporate citizens. Many of them are. And so we're saying that there's a responsibility also of our business owners to make efforts to maintain and they're responsible to keep those carts on their property. And so that's what this ordinance does tonight, or is within the ordinance tonight. And we're asking for your approval on it. Do you have any questions or comments?
Chief, isn't there is it my turn, Tom? Isn't there technology like with GPS or something where the wheels will lock if it's like they program in a certain zone? I've seen it before in other areas. I don't think I've seen it around here.
There's different methods. And we don't link anybody, we don't lock anybody into any one particular way. We have to come up, they have to come up with a plan. It has to be submitted to us.
I got you.
And to the, I think it goes through the city attorney's office, but I have to check on that. We're working with, so yes, there are ways, there are technological ways. I know as a kid, I remember, they had the old big, of course I date myself here, but they had the big poles so you couldn't get through. Now, that's old technology, I guess, but there is newer technology out there. Part of what we're asking also is that they have to post it, very clearly post it on the property. That it is a crime to remove it from the property. Many stores already have this, and so it's not a big issue for them, to be honest.
They don't want to lose them.
And it is. It's an asset for them, and so it is a cost to them. So, but there are different things. We're not locking anybody into any one particular way they have to maintain, or they're responsible to keep those carts on their property. It's up to the business owner how they do it.
Other questions or comments?
I think, Chief, I just want to make sure that we take, and I know you will, take every effort to communicate clearly to all of our business owners why we're doing this. And that this is in no way intended to create more workload on them or anything like that. This is how they can help us help them. And with the growing issues that we're seeing, not only in our city but around the county, we're going to have to start putting measures here and there in place. And this is a good one. This is a real good one. I know many years ago, I remember some places even had shopping carts that specifically on the seat that a small child would sit on, that little section. Specifically, it said the value of this cart, if it exceeds $300, thus under Florida State statute, this commits a felony if you remove the cart from the property and stuff like that. I don't see that much anymore, but what I do see is a ton of carts. And I had an old police chief, and I swear the guy could ride around the city and pick out shopping carts all over the place. And the zone guys would have to go contact the business owners and say, hey, you got 3 carts down at Herbert and Nova and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, he looked just like that guy.
So those police chiefs have been known to do that.
But what's happened is so what's happened now is instead of just taking the golf cart or the shopping cart and they're wheeling it down the street to their apartment or maybe wherever they're going and they unload their groceries and they bring it back on the next trip. Now the cart gets discarded in ponds and lakes and wood lines, and they're just all over the place. So it's costing the business owners a ton of money. It's creating unsightly weakness of the city. It's creating all kinds of issues for us to have to deal with. So I think this is a step in the right direction. So I appreciate the time and the effort by not only yourself and your staff, but the city attorney staff to start moving us in the direction with ordinances like this that will give us some more tools for that box that I think we need in our city right now.
Thank you. And if I could comment on that too, it's not only everything that you said, which is accurate, but it is, you know, it's the old broken windows theory, right? I know I'm talking to two retired police officers, and so the broken windows theory. And so this decay leads to more serious stuff. People can say, well, that's not serious. Well, it may not be in the sense of a crime, but it is a quality of life issue that we're all concerned about. We want to address it before it turns into something more, because it just deteriorates. It encourages that deterioration. So that's what that's all based on. And so to add to what you said, Councilman, thank you.
I get an elderly gentleman that calls me every once in a while to let me know when a shopping cart has been left at the bus stop in front of Home Depot.
Yeah.
And I'll end up having to call it into Cindy when it happens. He hasn't called me lately, but it brings up a different concern that if they're left at bus stops, they're left in front of other stores and places. Certainly they don't belong, and they become a hindrance in other ways as well. Certainly at a bus stop when somebody's trying to navigate it. Comments, questions?
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
One comment, Mr. Mayor and Council. The point that Vice Mayor has brought forward about communicating with all the businesses it is a great point, and it improves our ordinance if we recognize that as part of our record. So we'd like to recommend throwing in a whereas that supports that activity because it strengthens your enforcement of that ordinance. And that would require your amendment.
How do we get the word out to these businesses? What's the?
We'll take care of that.
Yeah,
Very active.
Yeah,
campaign.
we'll meet with Chamber.
Yeah, I
We'll
think you have a motion.
if we have to go visit stores,
Probably.
we will put a team together
Have to amend
and
it.
do it. But I think going through the Chamber will give us that base as well.
That's the beginning. I think anything that we can do to, I'll get you in just a second, Tom. Reach out to our business community also allows them to communicate with us on a variety of issues that we may not be aware of. So this may lead to other positive avenues. Any other comments for the chief?
Good job, Chief.
Tom, come on up.
Thank you for mentioning broken glass. That's something to think about.
Tom, introduce yourself.
Oh, Tom Minical, 985 Countryside West Boulevard.
Thanks.
You know, a low-tech, you know, GPS on wheels. Sorry, but anyway, if the code enforcement can just take a photograph with a geotag, you know, phone, you know, cell phone or whatever. Geotagging gives you almost a precise location within, you know, 3 feet that way or 3 feet that way, and you email that to the business owner. You know, they can find a way of retrieving it just by looking at the photo and looking at the information of where it's located on Google Earth. Somebody mentioned Google Earth earlier, so it's, you know, it's very simple and quick, and it would help. It's an evidentiary trail. You have pictures of the actual problem. You have the geotag, which geographically locates it, and you have the marching orders for the business, you know, people that want to retrieve their carts. You know.
Good.
I just want to clarify, so I wasn't like suggesting or mandating that somebody put the locking wheels on their carts. I'm just saying I've seen the technology and there's several different options. No, Tom, I'm not saying to do it. I'm saying technology is available and it's up to the businesses to take care of their own carts in any way that they see fit. It's their asset. I was just saying I've seen technology available.
Just real briefly, one of the things I've heard, I don't know if it's true, but some of these carts are outsourced. You know, the actual company that's represented on the cart, it's not the actual owner. They pay like a fee or a lease or rent. So, it's kind of a mixed bag.
Still their asset.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Mark?
Mark Dixon, 667 Herbert Street. I just want to go over real quick. You're going to be punishing some businesses here when there's already a state statute in place. I know that when the milk crate law came out, there was a melee run with the police officers on the transients and so on and so forth. I would probably say recommend, and I'm sure the business would do this, is have them all sign an agreement similarly with the trespass, where they will, the police have authority to go in and arrest for trespass without the owner being there. Do the same thing with the shopping carts, because what's going to happen is you're going to have an ordinance, then you're going to have to fine them, then you're going to have to do this. When the problem is the people that are taking them, and then you could educate those people that are taking with either that warning or an FI card as we used to do, and that's what we had to do when there was some problem with in our city. That was always the result of it. But with regards to penalizing these businesses for their customers that are coming in there, you're just going to have more and more problems, in a community-based standard where the Port Orange Police Department is going to now fine us every time our shopping cart's here. We're not donating anything anymore. We're not doing this because they're already taking so much money from me. So I would highly recommend just having that agreement with them. If you see a shopping cart out there, put the ordinance on the people that are taking it rather than the people that are supplying it there for doing it. I think you'll have a better response from the community there. And as well, like I said, you'll be able to enforce it more there on a positive side towards the businesses that are probably giving money back to the community as it is already. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Margaret, you had a suggestion for an amendment. Can you repeat that, please?
Right, to add a whereas paragraph that recognizes that the commercial business owners have been notified and given an opportunity to bring forward their comments and concerns.
You want to amend your motion to include that?
So amended.
Who was the second?
I believe it was me, and I
Second.
agree with it.
But me or you?
No, it was Tremont. It was Tremont.
Oh, you got to do it.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to the amendment. Any other comments or questions on the amendment? There being none, call the roll on the amendment.
Councilman Ford.
Yes.
Councilman Tremont.
Yes.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. Any comments or questions on the primary motion? There being none, call the roll on the primary motion.
Councilman Ford.
Yes.
Councilman Tremont.
Yes.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Yes.
And Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. 2018-28 is item 21 is first reading of ordinance 2018-28 on RV code amendment. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending section 70-48 the Code of Ordinances relating to parking of recreational vehicles and equipment in residential areas, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 2018-28.
Second. We have a motion. We have a second. Welcome back.
Good evening.
It's been a long time.
Tom Grimaldi, Police Chief. This was brought forward to us by our code enforcement team. They have ran into several situations over the last couple of years, and there's some, I guess, some conflicting language. So it's really addressing the facade of the home. What constitutes the facade of the home? Is it the front area, the face? Or do they include the overhang, which is 2 feet? Now, we're talking 24 inches, doesn't sound like a lot, but I guess when you're parking a motorhome next to your house, it means a lot, because the way the ordinance is written, it cannot extend beyond the facade of the home. So what they're asking for here is to add in, if you look in section 70-48, subsection B, it just really states that the difference here is that the front plane of the dwelling unit means the plane alongst front of the facade to include the overhang of the
So
roof.
instead of going by the plane determination, we're going to go by the facade determination.
Correct. Speaking to our code enforcement staff, we're really trying to look at this and go through it. They do get quite a few of these complaints, and they're kind of stuck what to do on these. The big thing here is before we decided to bring this forward to our legal department and ask for some rewording, we asked, how is this going to affect the look of the neighborhood? And we don't feel that it's going to detract from the look of really anyone's neighborhood. So the request is to approve this to include the 2-foot overhang, which would provide that extra 2 feet. And it really becomes an issue when residents are parking RVs on the side of their homes. And it provides a clearer language for our code enforcement.
Other questions? Chief, outline for me basically what our current code is right now.
So currently, if concerning an RV, it can be parked on the side of the home, but it cannot extend past the front facade of the house. There's some conflicting language on it, but we believe the front facade of the house to be just the front plane of the house, so the front wall, if you will. And so that's what we think it currently says. And I say think because there is some conflicting language there. If we say the overhang, which some cities do have that, the overhang, it gives them 2 more feet. It would provide for that 2 more extra feet for someone to park their vehicle or their RV on the side of the house without being in violation. So we're trying to look at this as how can we do this to help those citizens, but also not detract from the neighborhoods. And
So we're not banning parking, we're actually making it, as long as it stays behind the front plane or that line.
Right, and I don't, I don't really know the average length of a house on the side, but my understanding is there's some pretty large motorhomes, pretty large RVs that are parked there, and so some of them do extend slightly over, and it causes a problem.
Over the front, we're
Over
not
the
concerned
front,
with
the
the
wall.
back, or, okay.
As it currently reads.
I got you.
Any other comments or questions? Anybody else like to speak to this? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Ford?
Yes.
Councilman Tremont?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Siltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
No, 4-1. Guidance of fund ownership of Riverwalk property. I'm going to assume that's you, Jake.
It's actually Tracy, but I can talk to it. The general fund, as she's stepping up, the general fund bought these properties last year, and technically they were bought in the CRA. In order for the CRA to reap the benefits of these properties, we believe that we should transfer ownership to the CRA and loan the money to the CRA. So when the CRA starts making money soon, we can start paying back that loan. Tracy, did I get that close?
Yes, sir. Tracy Ream,
You can
Finance
say no.
Director. I think you did marvelously well.
I think he was marvelously optimistic.
So, at the bottom line is, we currently have the CRA that has those properties within the CRA. Some of them are owned by the general fund because the general fund paid for them directly. Some of them are owned by the 103 fund, which is the town center fund, which council is well aware is not sustaining its debt obligations at this point. By keeping all of the properties in the 103 fund, that would facilitate any future development of the area. It's also good to do it this year because we purchased it this year, so it's very simple to do it. We would maintain the claim that the general fund has on these by setting up an inter-fund loan. Not a loan pool loan, but just a direct loan from the general fund to the 103 fund. So in the event that we're able to generate some additional revenue, the general fund would have a claim on that. Of course, it would be behind the debt. You know, right now we're bailing it out, but it would make it more simple if we were to do it this way.
I concur because I want the town center CRA to be able to make decisions on all the properties within its confines that the city owns, not just some of them.
And if any parcels were combined or replatting or something like that, it would be simpler to do it when it has one owner as opposed to multiple.
Indeed. Comments, questions, council?
That makes sense to me.
It's good.
Anybody else like to speak to this? There being none, may I have a motion to that effect?
Mayor, do you want to talk to interest before the vote or after the vote as a second vote?
Let's do that separately.
Okay.
So what I'd entertain a motion is to transfer these properties from the general fund to the town center CRA.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other comments? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Ford?
Yes.
Councilman Tremont?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Siltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Now, Finance Net.
Mayor, staff recommend
Actually,
0%.
Any other recommendations or suggestions? Personally, I don't see carrying, I don't see adding additional interest to something that we're gonna have difficult paying on anyway, so I have no problem with keeping it at 0%. Just like to get
That
paid,
seems to make
period.
sense.
So moved.
Yeah.
We have a motion from Councilman Ford, second from Councilman Tremont. Any comments? Anybody else like to speak to this? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Ford?
Yes.
Councilman Tremont?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Jake, I didn't see anything else in here? Is that it on that one?
That's it on that one, sir.
Okay. Discussion of city attorney work performance. Before we get into that, Margaret and I met this afternoon, and one thing that I think is important that we give good feedback, one thing that she requested from us, if there's anything outside the confines of what we expect as far as goals and objectives for the following year, we should include that. And my suggestion is we can proceed however council wishes to. We can, you can individually meet with her and do those reviews, and then I could do something, take them all up together and do something publicly, or we can do what we've done in the past, is where you've met with her and then each of you can give your feedback publicly. But there again, it's up to council. What's your pleasure? You can do this, but I think it's important that we give the attorney honest feedback, much like we do from the city manager. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, we already approved a raise, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken, and so that's, you know, in my mind, that's approval of the job performance, or we wouldn't have done that, so, I mean, I don't feel like I need to do a complete evaluation. Again,
And if we do it
you know.
separately, I mean, that's up to you,
Yeah.
how extensively you want to go into it or not go into it.
I gotcha.
But generally speaking, best practices in dealing with human capital is that you try to separate the review process from the compensation adjustment.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, as soon as you get into the compensation piece, the actual good feedback of the review gets lost amongst
Okay.
where the money went. So I think it's important that we do the review process separate. And next
fine.
May, if we want to talk compensation, we'll talk compensation, but.
That's fine.
Individually would make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and then.
That's fine.
I wouldn't mind being able to recap all of us have a chance to recap those conversations publicly in a meeting.
Yep.
Sometime in October, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
That works.
Okay. Margaret, you got any questions from us?
No questions, one comment, and that is to thank council for the resources you provide to me and to my office, and that's by way of budgeting and staffing. What I accomplish is accomplished by many hands more than mine. So you have a good legal team, and I thank you for that. And I'll schedule some time with each of you, and we can determine how much time will be needed as we schedule.
Okay.
Mayor, if I can just make a quick comment. I just do want to say that, you know, over the last few months, we've had a lot of things that have needed to be discussed with you and your legal staff, and I do want to compliment your whole department, which I know falls under your leadership, Margaret. There have been quite a few times recently, and I know I'm probably not the only one, where there's just a lot going on and everybody's busy, and it has been very refreshing to know that it's not just an 8 to 5 thing. I know, unfortunately, I've had to talk to you late hours and some weekends, and Matt as well, and I'm very appreciative of that. Try much not to do that, so I apologize for when I do need to do it, but I also would like to just say thank you for that flexibility and also the thoroughness of which you provide those briefings and that information, not only you, but your whole staff. When I call the department up there, someone's always answering the phone, very professionally identifying who they are, and that stuff matters a lot. Because it is tough, and I know it's hard for you and Matt and everyone else involved to be able to make those, few minutes available throughout the course of the week, because there's a lot going on, and we've got a lot going on as well. And so staff plays a key role in linking us together when we need to have those.
Sounds to me like Margaret's about 1/5 of the way to getting a review done.
Well, I still want to meet with Margaret to talk about some other, items, just things to talk about from time to time like we do. But I just wanted to make a comment about your overall department and your staff and how appreciative I am of the service they provide to us specifically, so.
I
that's
appreciate
great.
your comments. Thank you very much.
Can I add something too? It goes for your staff. Recently, we got an email from an outside source that was actually praising Deputy City Attorney for his work. So I'd like to recognize him because your hard work and your efforts are appreciated, and they are actually recognized by other people other than us. So just want to say thank you and the staff and everything. But yeah, he was recently recognized. And
has he made probation yet?
I don't know. I have to check now.
Yeah, I think he has. He's been here long enough. I think he has.
I believe so.
But thank you, and thank you, Matt.
That's pretty good sucking up, guys. City Attorney comments.
Couple items this evening. One item is listed on your agenda with regard to the landscape contract that was awarded in early August. We have received the original contract and bond document. The bonding agency was willing to commit to a one-year bond with no assurance on the second year. This contract was bid as a 2-year contract, so I would like to recommend an amendment to that contract language before it is finally executed. And of course it would be subject to the bond company saying okay, the contractor saying okay, and the department head being okay with that. And that amendment would be to have a 1-year contract with the right to renew for an additional 1 year subject to bonding. That way, if the bond falls away for some unknown reason, then you can weigh that at that time and decide how you'd like to proceed, or if you want to put that in the hands of the manager to make that determination, that's up to you also.
So as long as we're not giving up control.
Exactly. That would be my concern. I don't want to be caught with a change in a major term.
Any problems or issues with that, gentlemen?
Nope.
No, I think it's smart business.
And I'll take your motion, and we can put that in the hands of the manager, and as you know, if he has any doubts, he'll be back to you.
May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion second. Council comments? None?
Makes sense.
Anybody else like to speak to this? None? Call the roll.
Councilman Ford.
Yes.
Councilman Tremont.
Yes.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Steltner.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thought about being spiteful, but no.
That's all I have tonight.
Okay. City manager comments.
Sir, Mayor, Council, as indicated on the summary, Frank Costa has agreed to allow us to utilize his property on Hensel Road for debris management. We formalized that deal based on his need to start developing a section of it, so we kind of moved our DMS site that was already in the works from last year over and back a little bit. It meets all our needs, it meets all his needs, it allows us to do DMS while he starts his business, and we've deconflicted everything, and we should be fine throughout the remainder of this year. And as always, I'm looking for a better location. So before everybody comes up and tells me of all the locations they know, the city's got a lot of great places to do this. I need a place inside the city, in the heart of the city. So that gets a little bit harder, but we're working with Public Works, Public Utilities, and some commercial folks out in town to look at some areas that may be of interest. As always, it would be nice to have it be city property, but I don't want to spend $3 million to hold a place as a dry field waiting for a hurricane to happen. So I think it's in our best
Which we know
interest
never comes.
to look for a lease that where we can kind of mess up somebody's property for a little bit of time and then replace it to its previous use
Back
and
the way it
move
was.
ahead. So we have a few people that are willing to help us with that.
Okay.
Just don't know if we want to pay that price yet, especially when Mr. Cost has been very helpful. So with your approval, I'm going to go ahead and sign that DMS site lease agreement. Absent your disapproval, I'm going to take care of that. Please, Margaret.
Just one thought crossed my mind, and that is many times we would seek multiple sites to always have the appropriate backups, and that lease provides for our non-exclusive right to do that.
Yes.
I would want that in there.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Any comments, questions,
No,
any
that
problems with that?
Works for me.
Okay.
We have consensus.
All right.
I hope we don't have to utilize it at all. We don't
me
have
too.
to mulch any debris there.
Yeah.
too.
No mulching this year. And my dock's gone in. So watch out, the storm's on the way.
Yeah.
Don't say that, Bob.
Also, I'd like to make sure that, since it was brought up a couple times tonight, that council and the public is very aware of my admin policy for salaried employees. As you're well aware, and you've mentioned it a little bit tonight, our department heads and quite a few of our salaried employees work tons of hours, and in my 3 years here, I've found that in some cases they've been abused and haven't complained much about it. Thank you, Tracy, during budget season here on weekends. So my policy to department heads, and I've allowed them to extend this, is that any time of a half day or larger will be put in executive time as a half day off or more. If you come back before lunch or leave after you come back from lunch, in other words, show up ahead of time, then they're authorized to take admin time after communicating with me, and the same for them. Nobody as a department head in this department, everybody keeps communication with me, and I would assume that happened in the past too. I very seldom do I not know where my department heads are, and very seldom I know exactly where they are because they're in their office or on the job. But everybody communicates with me when they're not going to be in the office, even if they're on the job but out of the office. So you can be confident to know that at any given hour, I know where all my department heads are, and that they are not abusing any privileges, and by virtue of their leadership, and you know them all, they have the right to do the same thing, and I have not seen them abuse that privilege to the extent where I'm concerned. I do not believe that hourly employees are abusing their time off, and if they are, and it's brought to a department head's attention, which it already has once, it will be dealt with swiftly, and we have much more accountability for those people hourly, and we make sure their hours are accounted for. So if in fact it comes to light that that's happening, I think it's news to me. It'd probably be news to most of the department heads here, and we will deal with that as quickly as we can. So I appreciate your time. That's all I have.
Mayor, I indicated to you earlier I had 2 items. I don't think I told you the second item, and when the manager spoke to the admin time, it reminded me. So when I may, I'll give you the second item. The council received earlier tonight, and I say this for the record of our transactions, I provided a brief summary of the documents that I reviewed regarding Mr. Miller's complaint regarding the meeting with the city manager. So you have that summary available to you.
Okay, that certainly gives everybody a chance to take a look at the relevant material and talk to the relevant individuals, whether it be the manager or the attorney, and so forth. Thank you. City Council reports. River to CTPO.
Not very much of concern occurred at the last meeting.
It's that time of year.
Yeah, it's that time of year. They were lengthy theoretical discussions on pay amounts, on how much of a proportion to be paid. Do we want to pay more for some things and get more product, or do we want to have a system where we can pay a larger percentage of a bill and get it moved up in the priority rating and the like?
That had to be a very riveting day for you.
It was a riveting day.
Bob, I appreciate you filling in for me, and I'm probably gonna need you at the end of September for the last meeting in September.
Just let me know.
Yeah.
General Employees Pension Plan.
No comment.
Okay. Volusia League of Cities dinner is Thursday, September 27th. I believe it is in Deltona. As of yet, Cindy hasn't heard any responses. I kind of need somebody to go because I'm going to be unable to go.
Yeah, I'm unable to attend that one.
Thursday the 27th, is anybody free?
I'll take a look.
Take a look.
I'll take a look.
If you could take a look for me, and heck, both of you guys can go. You can go together. That'd be
You can be
terrific.
my date.
Yeah.
You wonder how people get to talking. With that, any other business come before us this evening?
I did have a first step thing.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to prolong it.
No, that's okay.
But we've got an issue has come up. I just want you guys to be aware that I'll be on top of it.
An issue?
An issue.
Sorry. My apologies, Chase.
Can you say huge dollar signs?
Yeah, this was not brought before the board last Monday. The first news of it was at, I guess, a Daytona Beach Council meeting. I was not at the previous meeting anyway, but nevertheless, there'll be several questions I'll be asking. When I am there, I'll be asking who gave the initial estimate, who gave the new one. I'm going to ask for a line-by-line estimate and a line-by-line estimate justifying each increased cost. I'd like to know when the staff knew about the change of the estimate, and I'd like to know how long why it took so long to report that critical information. I'll also be requesting a new estimate from any other contractor. I'm not a contractor, so I don't know, but common sense tells me that things just don't jump, well over 100% from 2.5 million to 5.3. So while we don't have control over it as a board, it's on the city of Daytona. But what we do on the board is have a platform to ask the questions.
Well, the one thing I'm concerned about too, and Chase, as a board member, I'd appreciate you go back and asking this. If you're spending more on the facility, does that also mean that it's going to cost more to operate, maintenance, upkeep? If you're building a bigger, better mousetrap, is it going to require bigger, better cost to maintain it? And if so, you guys need to know that. And
Yeah.
and I appreciate your diligence.
Well, and that's, I've said since day one, their initial estimates of how much the operating costs are going to be are way off base. It's going to cost a lot more. As a board member, my role is to help this succeed. Nobody loses when First Step is successful. Nobody loses. Everybody wins in that situation. However, my number one loyalty is to Port Orange and see that we're getting the best bang for our tax dollars, and that we're actually being a part of a solution but the solution is also effective and efficient. So again, so much of it is on the city of Daytona, as it is their property, their building. We're still ironing out the details as to who controls what, who's responsible for what, if the air conditioner goes out, who fixes it, et cetera, et cetera. I will be asking those questions as a board member.
Very good.
Giving you a heads up, and I'm not afraid to recommend to council to jump ship if I think it's just going to be a continued, if it's not going to meet the needs that it was promised.
We'll know, well, I almost made the mistake of saying we'll know in 9 months. I should say, I hope we'll know in 9 months when it's supposed to open.
Well, I'm unimpressed so far. You know, we've been wanting to get plans for quite some time. It's taken forever to get even the site plans in place. And then to see how extravagant it's going to be is, you know, well, anyways, I'll be on it.
We are contributing to the operation of the shelter, not to the design, not to the construction. That is entirely up to a lot of other people, and a lot of other groups, and what they want to see out of that shelter. But as far as operating and our contribution, that does concern me.
Well, and that's why I'm, you know, again, it's the city's, Daytona's responsibility on the construction of it, et cetera. That's not a board, First Step board. However, it's an appearance issue, and that affects our ability to go out and raise funds for it, because people are already calling out a bait and switch on it. So,
questions or comments for Chase on this?
Yeah, Mayor, just to be clear and for the record, we contributed in FY17, end of the year. And it is not in our budget, and we are not contributing, and we've
already
signed
made
any
the contribution
agreement for anything in the future. So we're not on the ship. We have a member on the ship.
Well,
let us know whether it's sinking or we should get on it.
And that's exactly what I will be doing. And I'll be making a motion.
Will be standing by to throw you a lifesaver.
I will make a motion at our next meeting to not request funds from participating cities until there's a certificate of occupancy. Now, City of Daytona might not like it, but that's the right thing to do.
Well, that's the practice everybody's engaging in right now anyway.
Exactly.
Any other business coming before us this evening? If not, we'll see you all tomorrow at 5:30.
5:30.
Good night.